Hello and welcome back to Mortgage Financing and Homebuyer Ready. We are so glad you can be with us today, this afternoon. We're excited. We have a good show coming up for you. I'm going to let Jackie tell you about it later. But anyway, I'm Barbara Grant Proctor with Cardinal Financial.
And I'm Jackie Abrams with Sampson Properties.
And we are just going to have an awesome show. But let me just tell you, last week we had an awesome show. It was all about mortgage insurance. So if you haven't seen that show, please go back and watch that show. It's not just mortgage insurance. It's all different types of insurances that will help your family. But we had Marcy Miles on because we were talking about mortgage insurance. So this week, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people want to talk about, why this market is so crazy. So I want you to stay tuned. Don't move. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Badass us. Yeah, that's right. That's who we are. Badass us. What? Who are we? We are women. Beautiful, accomplished, and divine. That's right. Badass us. Yeah. Who are we? We are gentlemen. Our brothers, accomplished and determined. Yet, as society see us, we must still change the narrative. Yeah, that's right. Who are we? The black community. Remember us? We are accomplished. We are determined. We are divine. We are of greatness. That's right. The black community. Badass us. Who are we? That's right. Who am I? I am the person committed to building the next community movement. What about you?
And welcome back again to Mortgage Financing and Home Buyer Ready. I just want to make sure that I tell everybody out there, if you'd like to be a studio audience, please email us at homebuyingaudience@gmail.com. And then if you have any questions about anything that Jackie and I talked about in past weeks, current weeks, maybe future weeks, any questions you have, just send it to homebuyingquestions@gmail.com. And Jackie or myself, we'll be happy to answer
That's
it, right?
We will.
We will. We love answering your questions. We love helping you out. But today, because everybody is going crazy, right?
Yes.
Everybody is
they've
going
been crazy.
Yes.
They've been crazy.
Yes.
Yes.
So Jackie is going to give us so much information today. So you better take notes. So Jackie, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about, Barbara, a seller's market versus a buyer's market. And if anyone out there knows what's going on in the market right now, it is definitely a seller's market, and it's been a seller's market for quite a while. For quite a while. I actually did a little bit of research to find that it's actually we've had more seller markets than we've had buyer markets for just numerous years.
Wow.
So the last true buyer's market was 2011 through 2013. That was the last true buyer's market.
Wow.
Okay. And the reason I say true is because the market sways back and forth. Different things may impact it, but it usually is a gentle sway back and forth. And so people who are not in the market may not necessarily notice the difference.
And that was all because of what happened in 2008, 2009.
Because of 2008.
When the mortgage industry kind of crashed.
That's right.
Then it just became a buyer's market.
That's right. That's right. And so that was the direct result of that.
Okay.
Yes, it was. Thank you for that reminder. It was the direct result of that. And so, but it was very short. It was very short-lived. And so now we are in a seller's market for sure. But what we're going to do is start off by talking about a buyer's market because I am hopeful. I am very hopeful
That your buyers
Barbara,
out there?
that my buyers out there will still want to get in this market, but not so much for that, but that we are going to return to a buyer's market. Because
Absolutely.
this has just been horrendous for all of my buyers.
Not to
And-
take away from the sellers, though, right?
Oh,
You know,
no,
the
not to
sellers
take
are doing
away.
well,
Oh, they
right?
are. They
But
are.
still, the
They
buyers are the
They
ones. They
are.
want to get into this, right?
That's right. So it's very competitive out there.
Very
So
competitive.
basically, some of the things that are impacted, no matter what the market is, there are many things that are impacted, Barbara, no matter what the market is. So some of those things are sell prices, also things like closing assistance, days on the market. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, days on the market has just been really, really insane. Home inspections are impacted. We had Steve Madewell on here
Yes.
weeks and weeks ago, and so he may have mentioned, a little bit about how his business has changed a little bit. But because I'm in touch with him all the time, I kind of get a heads up on how his business is going for home inspections.
Absolutely.
Open houses are impacted, and also the condition of homes can change versus from a buyer's market to a seller's market.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of those things in detail.
Okay.
So if it's a buyer's market, which is what we're going to address first, then the sales prices or the asking prices or the listing prices, however you want to say that, are usually going to be generally lower.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to be agents actually have time to figure out comps.
Right.
That's kind of a joke. We always have time to figure out comps.
You have no
But,
choice but to.
But in general, the housing prices are going to be lower. And also, sellers are more likely, at least the last time there was a definite buyer's market, sellers were more likely to offer closing cost assistance, okay?
That little extra money.
That's right.
Always helps,
and,
right?
And little, 3%, up to 3%. And sometimes, I actually had a seller give one of my clients 5%. Now, that was truly unheard
the
of.
difference is FHA will let you do 6%. Conventional will only let you do 3%.
Okay.
Right? Help.
Okay.
So that's why you got the 5. It probably was FHA.
It was
And most
FHA.
people 3% at the time. It probably was conventional.
Well, the reason that my client got the 5 is because the seller was so generous.
Well, it had to be an FHA
Yeah,
loan, or
yes, it
conventional
was a-
wouldn't have allowed it.
Yes,
That's
I
what I
got
meant
you.
by
I understand.
that. Right.
I understand. Yes. So, closing cost assistance is advertised, and during a buyer's market is advertised in the listing. These sellers are competing to get buyers to see their homes. They may even offer to pay some other things, like to pay all of the property taxes. So there are numerous things that can happen regarding the finances around when it's a buyer's market.
Absolutely.
Open houses. Let's talk a little bit about open houses during a buyer's market. There's so many open houses. Buyers plan to go see open houses on Saturdays and Sundays. There may even be some open houses that happen during the week because those listing agents want to get those open houses in.
Yes.
And so there may even be an open house for to invite the community to come in to see the home
see
where
the
the
home.
home is listed.
Yes.
So they may invite the neighbor. So they call that a neighbor open house.
Remember
so,
when we used to do open houses?
Yes,
Jackie?
I do.
Jackie and I used to do open houses. Jackie would always invite me as the
Yes,
lender
that's right.
in case anybody wanted to
That's
go
right.
ahead and put an offer on the house.
That's
I was
right.
there. I could practically approve them
That's
right on the
right.
spot.
I love having Barbara with me on the
love being
spot, as
with
she
her.
says. Yes. But we'll talk about why that hasn't happened. in a
Yeah,
while.
we'll talk about why that hasn't happened. Absolutely.
So the reason that there are less open houses during this type of market, or I'm sorry, more open houses, I should say, in a buyer's market, is because homes stay on the market longer. There are many more homes during a buyer's market than there are buyers who are looking.
Right.
And so homes tend to stay on longer. During a regular buyer's market, let's say 2011, 2013, or whatever those years may have been, where it was also leaning in the favor of the buyer a little bit more, or a lot more than it is now. A home might be on the market for 30, 60, and it was not a unusual to see a nice home on the market for 90 days. That just
Right.
wasn't unusual.
Right.
And so, things are more relaxed. That's how I like to look at
and
it.
then sometimes I even noticed in the buyer's market, if you see a home on for that long, Jackie used to always point this out to me. They would take the home off, do something or change something, maybe better pictures, something, and then put the home
Back on
up
the market.
on the market.
That's right. That's
Absolutely.
Right. So it would be temporary off the market, maybe for those reasons. Maybe the seller said, okay, we'll do this work if it doesn't sell within a 20 or 30-day period.
Right, right.
And so then they say, okay, let's come back and let's put that new floor in, or let's update that carpet to try to make the home more competitive. So you notice I keep saying competition is with the home. Competition is with the seller, the listing agent. Though that's the competition who the people who are mostly impacted by trying to be competitive in a buyer's market. And so also things that are impacted, home inspections. Okay. So home inspections in a buyer's market, it's just a given. The seller knows that the buyer is going to do a home inspection.
Right.
And usually on a contract in a relaxed time period, you might put 10 days on your contract to have your home inspection completed. That also means getting back to the owner with the repairs that you want the homeowner to make. And the homeowner is very willing to make just about all of those repairs.
All of them.
All of them. So that is, again, a more relaxed scenario for the buyers during a buyer's market.
Absolutely.
Conditions of the homes are better. Conditions of the homes, when I say that, I mean, not that this doesn't happen in a seller's market, but in a buyer's market, it's much more obvious that the homes have been fully painted, not just touch up, or not just left to however it looks. In this particular market, I'm just going to say this part right now, we see a lot of that. It's just left to however it looks. But the lawns are manicured. The homes are painted. Quality, exactly, quality. And the upgrades are done. Again, because the sellers are trying to compete.
Really get rid of this
and they're
home.
trying to get that home ready so that it can be one of the first ones to get a contract on
Absolutely.
it. Okay?
Absolutely.
And so those are some of the definite things that, as I said, are impacted by the whether it's a seller's market or buyer's market. Those are pretty much the areas. So
And that's it. And I think, even, for being a buyer's market, and I know you're going to go through both of them, but, in a buyer's market, even a lot of times interest rates are pretty good.
oh yes,
In a
yes.
buyer's market as well. But interest rates can be good or bad in the seller or buyer's market. But a lot of time interest rates will be pretty good in a buyer's market, and you don't have as many of those as is homes, because like you said, everybody wants to put their best foot forward and to make sure that their house, it looks spectacular.
That's right.
In order to get those people in to actually put a contract in on
That's
their home.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So, so now what we're going to do is talk a little. Oh, one thing that I did mean to say about the open houses. Again, it's not that we don't have open houses, Barbara, doing a seller's
right.
market, but when it's a buyer's market, we have them. There's more relaxed. When we flip everything around to the seller's market, okay, it's a little bit different, and it's mostly because of time. That time factor, that time that a home is on the market really is impacted when it becomes a seller's market. So what we're going to talk about in just a few minutes is the seller's market.
Right. But one thing I want to say about the buyer's market, when buyers go out and they look at several different homes, what is the negotiations like? What is that like? Because a seller wants to really sell their home, so when they're negotiating contract wise, like now that they're doing the bidding, right? But now a buyer has more grounds to say, I want this, this, this. What does the negotiations look like?
Well, it's the negotiations, I would say, are still going to be some of the same, but in a buyer's market, the seller is the one who's kind of in the hot seat, not really the buyer. So they're trying to, as I said earlier, make sure that their home is pristine, it's fully painted, it's upgraded. They're trying to get top dollar also. Okay. But as far as negotiations, the buyer is going to ask, for what they would like to have, repaired. But what I see more than anything, Barbara, is that when it's not a buyer's market, the homes are listed as is, and you just mentioned that.
Right.
So that happens much more in a seller's market when it's listed as is. And so
Right, exactly.
some buyers may think that, okay, I can't get any repairs done. That's not always necessarily true. Okay. So when you say negotiations, you're negotiating over, in a buyer's market, you're negotiating. And it's not really negotiating. You're just asking.
So, you can ask for that closing help, right? When you're in a buyer's market, you're more apt to, or your realtor is more apt to say, well, okay, they want to sell the home. We are in a buyer's market, because your realtor will know that you're in a buyer's market. And if you want to get closing help to help you, that's the time to ask. So you have to kind of know.
Guess what? Most of the time, you didn't even have to ask, Barbara. It was right in the listing. Seller providing 3% closing assistance.
Wow.
Listed right there.
Did I miss that? I missed that on my home.
Maybe. Oh, well.
It was 20 years ago, but
Okay.
I missed it.
Yeah, I really don't know what was happening.
The seller was I don't remember if I was in a buyer or seller's market.
I don't know what was happening 20 years ago.
Oh, you don't know?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, 20 years ago, I was in my little house. I wasn't thinking about buying. I was not a realtor.
You remember I got issues with that, so I'm not gonna go backwards. I'm not gonna go backwards with that, because I still think that loan officer owed me some money.
No, I hear
but
you.
anyway,
I
I'm
hear
gonna
you. But
digress.
you know what? I think I'll put that on my to-do list to look up and see what was going on 20 years ago.
What was going on 20 years ago? But I didn't know that it's actually listed in there.
It's listed in there. And every once
that's to
in a
pull
while,
the people.
That's to pull them. That's right. Every once in a while, I have seen, and when I say once in a while, so I'm going to say in the last 2 years, okay, I have seen a listing say seller assistance may be provided, or some seller assistance
to give you the opportunity to say how much you want. So they're not really putting that. Okay.
It's not even how much
I'm
you
trying.
want. They're just letting you know they might give you
They
some.
might give you something.
But usually there's a reason for that, Barbara. That's
Okay.
because that home may have been on the market longer than 30 days, 15 to 30 days. That's a long time in this particular market, an extremely long time. And so they may be, saying, or either it could not even be that. It may be that the seller, sometimes things have to do with the seller specifically. And the seller may need to get out of their home quickly enough so that they can transition to whatever they're going to. So that's called a motivated seller.
Motivated seller. There's that word,
Yes,
motivated.
yes.
Like somebody in a service.
Yes, it could be that. It could be
Relocate.
that they're relocating because of their job. It could be numerous things. It could be that the builder that they're working with, again, in a more relaxed time, not today, they got the home, put together quicker. They were able to build it quicker, and so they need to have now an expediting kind of a closing on selling this one so that they can get the other one. So there are mitigating factors that would cause a seller to do that. And sometimes you'll just see in the listing today, you'll just see the words motivated seller.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily tell you, what the motivation is.
But
in 2015, when I actually started as a realtor, I always called the listing agent, and I would ask, what is the motivating factor here? What motivates your seller?
that's what I like. And you still call today.
Well, I call, but it's a little different conversation.
I know it's a different,
now.
but you
It's
still
very
call.
different.
I just like the fact that you call.
I do. Well, let me say this. I call when I call. Do I speak to them every time is now the question.
But you call.
But I do. Okay.
I know-
And then actually there may have been a few that I didn't tell you about. I wasn't able to call. I had to hurry up and get home. And
I mean,
but we're going to
the
talk.
point I'm
We're going to
making,
talk about that.
Jackie
We're gonna talk
Abrams.
about why.
The point I'm making is that
I
I
do
know
call.
some that do not.
That's right, who
Call,
never,
with
ever
the
call.
contract in.
That's
Don't
right.
call. I'm just saying she's
That's right.
working on your behalf.
That's right.
And she called. She had to add all that other stuff in there. I don't even know why she added. But anyway, I know for a fact that if we're trying to get a contract, she calls.
That's right. I do.
How about that?
I do my best.
Yes.
I do my best. I do. So-
Sometimes. It's okay. It's okay.
So, I hope I answered your question
did.
about
You did.
negotiations.
You did. You answered mine and everyone else's.
Okay. Okay.
I know somebody was thinking it, so I want to make sure I put it in there.
Okay. But again, the factor is about time. That's the biggest difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market, and it impacts lots of different areas, as I've already said.
Okay.
In a let's say you want to get an inspection done again in a buyer's market. You put 10 days on the contract, you have plenty of time to get your regular home inspection done. If you want to have your roof certified, you have time to get that done. 10 days is a lot of time to get all of those. If you want to get a mold inspection, 10 days is an awful lot of time. And then you get back to the sellers as to whether or not you're going to proceed in the contract.
Okay.
And you're also, of course, at that time, because it's a buyer's market, you're asking them, will you basically cover this? Will you repair this? Will you pay for these repairs?
Absolutely.
And so you have time to get all that done. It's very relaxed.
Well, I know that you have time because you have everybody set up and lined up already. But is 10 days a normal? Is
in
that
the
a
buyer's
normal
market,
in a buyer?
if I put 10 days on there now, they'll be looking at me like, what?
Okay.
Yeah.
In the buyer's market,
Yeah.
10 days is good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll talk about how things change in
Okay.
the seller's market and
Okay.
why I would not put 10 days. And that hasn't been the whole time in the last 2 years.
Okay.
It has dwindled down. In the beginning, 2020, we definitely still put, around 10 days
Okay.
to get back to the seller. But now that would not be happening.
That wouldn't work
No.
now?
Because and we'll talk about why. We'll talk about
why.
We'll talk about why. One final thing I do want to say, in a buyer's market, a listing agent is really happy to get one or two offers on that home. I mean, ecstatic.
Right.
To get one or
two offers, right, and I can
because
understand
as
that.
I've said to a client of mine, a seller client, and I may have even said that to a seller client that I know very well. I can't remember right now. But basically, we have one. It's a great offer. It's right at asking price. This is the one we need. We only need one. Let's go for it.
I only need one.
Only need one.
Highest bidder wins.
That's right.
Maybe.
That's
It just
right.
depends on what all they're
It does.
asking for.
It does.
But this is so interesting, Jackie. I mean, I'm glad that, we're talking about this topic now because of what's happening. So when we come back, we're going to finish talking about a seller's market, correct?
Yes. We're gonna
So you
talk
want to stay
about-
tuned for that because that's the market we're in now.
Yes.
Stay tuned and we'll be right back.
It is key that you mind your mental health.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing this week? Hi.
Use the 5 keys to mental
Well, this week
movement.
has been a really monumental week for me. I realized that I was not being myself.
Reaching out.
Be positive attitude person self, like you guys know me to be. I was
Staying
listening to
upbeat.
teaching and get back to that happy, cheery self you guys of me.
This week's been kind of
Being
stressful
creative.
because of all of the workload that we have on online learning. So I've been trying to use different platforms and different websites to help ease my mind and ease my stress.
And what about you, Margaret?
Well, you guys know me. I just love to work with others and serve them.
Serving others.
Realize that when I serve others, my mind is off of myself.
That's right. And don't forget, self-care is key.
Self-care.
All right. So see you guys next week.
Right.
Bye.
Your mind matters.
And welcome back to Mortgage Financing and Homebuyer Ready. If you're just tuning in, well, you missed a good part of it. We were talking about a buyer and seller's market, but we were hitting on the buyer's market. And right now, we're going to talk more about a seller's market. So Jackie, so tell us some of the things what makes a seller's market.
Okay. So
Why are you laughing?
Because I just am.
Okay.
So the seller's market is what we're in right now, Barbara. It is what we
Now,
are
that is
in.
funny.
Oh my gosh, we're in it. I call this a seller's market on steroids. So you've heard me say that before.
Yes.
So the market, it shifts back and forth. It sways back and forth. Someone may ask, can it be a seller's market and a buyer's market at the same time? So, you might call that a 50-50 market, kind of in the middle. And yes, it can be, because it's usually not so firm as to what type of market it is.
Okay.
If you look at many, many years, the very firm years are not going to be as obvious, okay?
Okay.
And of course, it also depends, and I do need to say this, it also depends on the area that you're in. I'm talking specifically about the DMV, area right now.
Okay.
So in other parts of the country, it could be different. It could still be different.
To be
Okay.
a 50-50 market?
Well, I'm just saying the type of market it is, whether
Okay.
it's a buyer's market or a seller's market.
Okay.
This is what I'm experiencing, what we are experiencing in this area.
Mm-hmm.
But listening to the news and always having my ear to the ground, so to speak, on what's happening in real estate across the country, I know it's also happening in California, Texas.
Right,
So
right,
it
right.
pretty much is happening that it's a seller's market, and I just want to add on steroids across the country.
Mm-hmm.
But there probably are some small, towns
Mm-hmm.
that maybe they're not as impacted as greatly as we are.
As we are.
Okay.
It's probably just not a market going on. Maybe they're not selling and buying. Is that what you mean?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
It's hard to say. Yeah,
Okay.
people are always selling and buying. Always
Okay.
selling and buying. Yeah, that was one of the things, and this is a little segue, that until I became a realtor, I didn't realize so many homes sold in the wintertime.
Oh,
I did
yes.
not realize that.
Absolutely.
You
You
signs
thought
were
everybody
up.
stayed in and
Well, people stayed in. I know, because as an educator, people want to purchase prior to the new
School.
school year starting. And so it's kind of like having your eyes wide open to something when you become a part of that. And that's what happened with me with real estate, because once I did, then of course I saw for sale signs everywhere during the months of November, December, January, and February, our coldest months of the year. Whereas before, I could have cared less. I wasn't paying attention. I was in my house. I wasn't a realtor.
And you know what the funny thing about that is? When I had people like around September, October that said they want to start looking for a house, and they may ask me, even when they're talking about credit and stuff, I tell them the best time to do things on credit reports. And I said the best time to go looking for a house, because a lot of people don't like to come out in the cold. There's people still selling houses, and you have a better chance in those winter months
That's right.
getting out there and buying those houses.
That's
And I
right.
used to tell my personal clients that,
That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And that rule was very, very true, Barbara, up until 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
So we actually didn't really have a winter market. And a winter market is what Barbara just described. Not as many people are coming out, not as many houses are on the market. We pretty much, during the winter months for the last 2 years, had what I would call a late fall market.
Okay.
The activity's still there. And even an early spring market.
Absolutely.
In the
absolutely.
wintertime.
Right.
So
right.
you can imagine what happened when it heated up and summer came. It just got crazy.
Got crazy.
Yeah, it just got crazy. So it's starting to, as people call it, it's starting to cool off a little bit. It's starting to cool off a little bit now. It's not.
And then
as
it was
hot.
really okay, so the 50-50. Okay, I'm just thinking
Okay.
here. Last summer, fall, would you call that a 50-50
No.
when interest rates were low and the sellers were selling but the buyers were out there? That's not 50.
No, because
okay,
because they're and that's because of one of the factors, the housing inventory. The housing inventory has been low for a while now.
Got it,
So that was
got
one
it.
of the factors
housing
that
inventory.
that was still in the sellers. Okay, so less homes on the market means that there are. I'm sorry, if there are less homes on the market and there are more buyers,
Right.
okay, that means it's a seller's
it's
market.
a seller's market. There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
so housing inventory is a huge factor.
Yes.
And unfortunately,
Supply and demand.
we're still, that's right, supply and demand. And we're still in that that time where inventory is low. And basically, the way that the industry looks at housing inventory is they literally they do data on it. They look at the number of houses that are on the market, and they look at how quickly they sell, and they actually come up with a formula that says if we go at this particular rate, whatever that rate is, we're going to run out of houses in a few months, or in a few, in 3 months, 4 months, if more people don't put homes on the market. So we have never run out of houses to sell, but it has been a little scary time a few times, especially in the last 2 years. It was reported that housing inventory was at one of its lowest in our area. Okay, which just means more competition. That's all.
Did COVID
that's all
have
that
anything
means.
to do with it, you think, or it's just the way it was?
COVID may have
A little bit.
to do with the housing
low
inventory.
low inventory, people just not leaving, not selling, not getting.
Just too many buyers. It was
just too
really,
many buyers.
Just
People
too
were
many
still
buyers.
too many buyers still looking.
Too many
Okay.
buyers. That interest rate got everyone thinking
Now's the time.
That now is the time. Also, when you bring up COVID, people, just not about housing, but about their lives and about
Not allowing
their,
people in
and working, where they worked. People said, okay, I don't necessarily, because they were working from home.
Right,
And many
okay.
industries had their employees working from home.
Okay.
And so the industries, not all, but many industries came up with, well, you know what? We don't have to have everyone come back into the office.
Right.
So some people made decisions based on that. They said, I don't need to have a house in, let's just say DC. I can have a house that's much, much, much farther out. I can be states away, and I can still work. So people who had never really considered moving or even purchasing a home decided to get in the market.
Okay.
So millennials, man, they hit the market.
Oh yeah,
like
I know
crazy.
millennials are just
Like crazy.
Yeah.
And so that interest rate impacted that. The fact that people knew that they could work from wherever, work from their home, and still be employed by their current employer, that impacted it a lot also. Okay, so yes, COVID did have something to do with it. It did. And then I also think people said, you know what? Life can be fleeting. If I don't make this move now, I may not be able to make this move. So there were probably lots of personal reasons also why people did that.
Okay.
Or either other people saying, I want to be closer to family. I came out to this area. I left my family. I left my home site for this area. But now I can go back there and I can still work for my big company.
That's right.
Because I can work remotely.
That's right.
So
That's
lots and lots of factors did change that. And yes, Barbara, COVID did impact a lot of that.
Okay.
It did.
Okay.
It did. So let's look at, we've already talked about housing inventory. In a seller's market on steroids, there are fewer homes on the market and many, many, many more buyers wanting those homes, which steeps up the competition. It goes from being relaxed in a buyer's market rather, and I've explained all of those relaxed times in a buyer's market, to being a market where everyone's in a frenzy, okay? Everything's in a frenzy. That timeline speeds up on everything, and it changes everything. It truly does. So sales prices, let's talk about that. We've already talked about how in the buyer's market, they would be perhaps on the lower side. In a seller's market, they may be listed a little bit lower than what the market calls for. However, in order for the buyers, the many, many, many buyers who want, those fewer homes that are available, they will offer over asking price.
Over asking price.
And so sometimes the highest bidder wins. But there could be mitigating factors to that too. But in general, everybody wants the money in their pocket. The sellers want the money in their pocket.
Everybody wants the money in their pockets.
Ching, ching,
yes,
ching.
yes, yes. We really looking at all of this, and I want to finish with the seller's market. And I know we only got an hour to do this, but one of these shows, we're going to literally give some tidbits on how you get a contract, right? Do you want to do that? No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm
yes.
sorry, Jackie.
It's
I just
okay.
but
and some of
I
that's
heard you.
of that's in here. Some of that's in here.
Okay.
Some of it is. But yeah, you're right. A dedicated show to that would be wonderful.
yes.
Okay, so the housing, the price of homes. So let's say, Barbara, that a home is listed at $400,000, And that seems like that's a decent price based on what the listing agent found the market to be in that area. And so for the most part, as a buyer's agent, we learned that if you submit an offer at $400,000, you may be one among 25, 50. I knew an agent or two who received 75 offers on one home.
On one home.
The homes were nice. The homes were nice, but it's like they weren't all that.
Was it as is?
Yes,
Probably as
definitely,
is. Yeah,
definitely,
as is.
definitely.
Yes.
And I'm saying that it doesn't really matter whether you have the best home on the block,
Right.
or a median home, so to speak, on a block. The home is going to get sold today
Right.
because there are not enough homes, okay, for all those buyers, okay. So, so if you offer 405, 5,000 over asking,
Right.
a few years ago, the seller would have loved that, okay. 405 now, your offer is pretty much going to get chucked to the side.
Not even looked at.
I'm just saying, looked at to see 405, Chuck.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So people are offering 25 over, 15 over, yes. 25 over, 50 over. The very first time, Barbara, I heard that a home was the offering price for a home was $100,000 over the asking price. The very first time I heard that, I said to myself, okay, well, you know what? That's in California.
Wow.
That's never going to happen here.
Wow.
Well, boom. It
100,000?
100. I spoke with that agent. So this is not something that I just said,
Wow.
oh, this could be. I literally spoke with an agent. She had a property in D.C., and yes, they offered 100,000 over. And do you think they got that contract, Barbara?
Of course they got the
They
contract.
did. But they had actually offered 50, 60, and 70 over before and didn't get the contract. So they love this home so much, they said, let's just go for broke. We're going to offer, and that's truly what it is, going for broke. When you offer 100,000 over.
Me sitting beside you and as the loan officer, I know there's intricacies in that in the contract, and I don't know whether you'll talk about it here or we'll talk about it in that other show, but me sitting here as a loan officer, I'm going, negative equity, negative equity,
hello.
negative equity.
That's exactly what it is.
What
That's
my
what it
mind
is.
automatically goes to.
That's
But
what it is.
I know there's intricacies about that 100K being
That's what
offered
it
over
is.
that, and so let's just finish. I'm just
That's
like
what it is.
100,000.
So
Okay.
negative equity. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
negative
Yes,
equity.
definitely.
To recoup that, forget it. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, closing cost assistance. We've kind of already talked about that a little bit when we were talking about the buyer's market. So closing cost assistance is I'm going to say, and I haven't done any math on it, just my own eyes looking at all the different listings that I see, 99.9% chance that a listing is not going to say closing cost assistance available. It's just not going to say that in the
not
seller's
gonna
market.
say
They
it.
don't need to say that. And if you submit an offer and you're asking for closing assistance, you get turned down quicker than you can just imagine.
Right,
Because
absolutely.
they have 20, 25, 30 other offers that they can go through. And most of those agents are going to know, and their buyers are going to know not to do that. If it's their first home that they are putting an offer in on, they may the buyers may think of an older time in our real estate world where it was okay to ask, and not even okay to ask, where you just received.
Right.
You just received. We've had some deals where I listed and the seller said, I'm going to give 3%. And, that's just how it is.
Just
The
depends,
person gave 3%, another person gave 3%. So it was just expected that the seller was going to do that. Now, in this market, it's expected that you're going to come to the table with your own money.
All of it.
All of it.
Every penny of it.
So if you are not able to get down payment assistance through whether it's Maryland Mortgage Program or any of the other ones that may be out there, some lenders have their own special program. So however that works, if you're not able to do that, for the most part, you can pretty much forget it. Tap into your 401.
And definitely, if you're going to put $100,000, don't ask me for down payment assistance. Put your $100,000. That's your down payment assistance.
Yeah, well, this would not be for that particular.
I got it,
person.
Jackie. But
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
particular person.
saying, yes.
Right. And also, not only are, as I said before, not only are about pricing of homes. So the pricing of homes, it just shoots through the roof. That's literally what happens. But the factor in that is whether or not the buyer actually pays that extra. So let's look again at $400,000 home, the listing price might be let's use 440. Okay, listing price might be 440. Okay, and the buyer who really wants this home may offer 465. Okay, 25,000 over. Okay, and however, the buyer's contract, Barbara, determines whether or not they actually pay the 465 no matter what. So if the appraisal contingency is removed from the contract, that means that no matter what price that home comes in at, that buyer is going to pay $25,000 over. Now, I believe, Barbara, and you can, clarify this, that you've given a pre-approval for a specific amount. And if that pre-approval amount is 440, what happens with that $25,000? How does that work?
Well, first of all, if I give you an approval for 440, you're not going to do a contract for 465 because they're going to see the approval for 440, right? Unless Jackie is going to write in there, it's 440, but we're going to give you the $25,000
That's right.
regardless.
And that's called the appraisal contingency. Yes, the appraisal contingency.
Well, it doesn't even have to be appraisal contingency because I've only given you approval for 440. Whether the appraisal, it doesn't matter. It's the $25,000 is coming from somewhere other than the mortgage company.
That's right.
Regardless.
Exactly. That's
regardless.
Right. Exactly. You're absolutely right about that. So,
Yep.
so I guess the real way that would work is that they were actually given an approval for 465. Yes, they were given an approval for 465.
But the house was asking for 440.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
That's
And if
right.
that appraisal doesn't come in at 465, they owe that extra $25,000 at the table. It has nothing to do with your mortgage.
That's right. Anyway, okay.
Yep.
If that is the type of contract.
If
that
that's
they
the
wrote.
type of
That's
contract.
right.
And I just explain that one more time because I
Appraisal
want to make sure that
contingency.
doesn't go over everybody's head.
Right. The appraisal contingency or the contract, if you have an appraisal contingency and you remove it, you don't have that in your contract. Basically, what you're saying is no matter what the amount of the appraised value is, we're going to pay it.
Yep.
Okay. And so that's going to mean that you will be bringing, usually it could mean that you would be bringing $25,000 to the table.
To the table.
Because you've got to pay, that extra amount. Now, if your contract does not remove the appraisal contingency, then if the appraisal comes in less than 465, well, that means that the ball goes back into the court of the seller, because let's say it actually appraised at 445, okay, instead of 465. Then the seller is notified. The appraisal has to be sent to the seller, and Barbara already knows all this, has to be sent to the seller. And then the quote-unquote negotiations start again.
Right.
Okay? Usually I've already said to my buyers, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it for that
Right,
price,
but,
but it
nine
goes
times.
back into the hands of the seller to accept it.
Right,
But there
absolutely.
are circumstances under which they more than likely will accept
Will
it.
accept
It doesn't
it.
mean every time, but more than likely they will accept it.
And that's in hopes that there's not a backup
That's right.
contract,
That's
or
right.
you
That's
just
right.
never know about
That's
these
right.
things,
You
right?
don't. You don't.
You just never know. And the thing about I just wanted to add with that, Jackie, is that if you have the 25,000, that's 25,000 plus your closing costs plus your initial down payment. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back. We're going to take another break. I hope you were listening. If not, send us an email. We'll explain it to you again so you understand. But this is some good stuff, right, Jackie? So stay tuned. We'll be right back to give you more about a buyer and seller's market. Stay tuned.
the Residential Services Manager for Prestige Community Resources.
What our new facilities are respite centers. We're opening 2 in the city right now. Hopefully we'll expand to more. But respite centers are a place where people can come and get a little additional support with their mental health. Our one on Eastern Avenue is for men, and our one on Minnesota Avenue is for women. Our facilities are for all DC residents, especially focusing in on those in Ward 7 and 8. So they're really nice, and I'm excited for consumers to actually see them. What are the services that we're going to provide? Therapy, case management, medication management, all provided by professional staff, licensed nurse practitioner, psychiatrists, sociologists, social workers, and then our paraprofessionals, our case managers. It's just a place where you can come and get the supports that you need to work on your personal goals, as well as to get your mental health straight. Simple, single adult, 18 years of age or older, a DC resident. You need to have insurance, but if you don't have it, it's okay. Still come, we'll work on getting you insurance. Have to have a negative COVID test, a negative TB test, and be willing to work on your mental health. For more information about respite services, you can contact us at 202-796-5000 or hit us up on our website at www.prestigecommunityresources.org.
I'm asking you. Well, welcome back to Mortgage Finance and Homebuyer Ready. We're just having a good conversation here. During the break, we had a question that come in from one of our viewers, and the question they were asking about the inspection and as is. So if you have an as is home,
I'm sorry, I laughed. Keep going.
I know. I know. I'm trying to paraphrase, but if you have an as is home, why is the inspection important or not important?
Okay. So the reason I laughed is because in this market, a seller's market on steroids, most of the listings are going to say as is. They just put it right out there.
Yep.
And then some of them, which I happened to open up one this morning because I needed to send some notes to a new client on a home that was just sent to me last night. The home was not, it did not say in the listing as is, but when I opened up the seller disclosures, what I like to call seller docs, they had the as is form in there. So what are they saying?
As is?
Yeah, as is.
As
So
is.
I had to make my client aware of that because they would not see that looking at the listing.
Right, okay.
So that could be a 50-50 chance, 50-50 thing. I just got another contract with a client, and the home was not listed as is, but to make my client more competitive, or their offer more competitive, and we had written a one or two before, they just went ahead and said they'd accept it as is. Okay, they did that.
Okay.
So the question, going back to the inspection with an as is contract, some agents will say, do not do an inspection, okay? Some buyers may say, I don't want to do an inspection. A listing that I just got a month ago, well, not quite a month, but anyway, that buyer did not want to do an inspection.
The buyer
did not
said,
want to do an inspection.
I just want the house. I don't care. No inspection.
Right. And was not counseled, if you will, by the agent to do one. So as a listing agent, I'm like, oh, okay.
So let me ask this question real quick. If that was your buyer and it was listed, I'm just asking,
ask the question.
And it was listed as is, what would you tell your buyer?
Okay, so this is how I like to get around that, because as I said before, things are not relaxed. Everything's moving quickly. Sellers want, the old days of putting 10 days and we'll get back to you about the home inspection and whether or not we're going to proceed. That's out. So what I do is I am able to look at the calendar of a home inspector that I work mostly with. Not all of them have this calendar, but this particular one, when I know I need to get an inspection in 2 days or 3 days, at the max 4, I'm able to look at this person's calendar, this home inspector's calendar, and I'm going to just say this is Steve Madewell's calendar. He was on our show.
He was on our show.
And I'm able to see when he's available. So when I send the offer in, I say, this is an as-is contract, but my seller does want to do a home inspection for informational purposes only, and it will be done in 3 days or will be done in 4 days. And so they can see that. So if I just sent in that we were going to get back to the seller, I put, let's say 7 days on the contract for the home inspection period, then they don't really know when I'm going to get that inspection done. I just have to have it done and report back to them within the 7 days. But if I can get it done on day 3, which is, I think I've been able to get day 2 one time. But sometimes what happens is I will schedule it, because I literally schedule it. This is not me looking at the schedule. I want to go ahead and hold that date.
Okay.
So I schedule it on the calendar, Steve Madewell's calendar, but then the offer doesn't get accepted in that time period. So I'm thinking, okay, we can get this done in 2 days, but they're looking at 25 offers. So they have
It's
not
gonna take a
even,
little
so
bit more
yeah,
time.
so it takes more time. So usually I can kind of, say to him, this is tentative, and if you're not available this day, I say you're available, a day or two later. So either way, I have it covered. But I like to make it a point to say to the listing agent, I'm on this. This is going to be done quickly. This is not going to waste your time or your seller's time, because in 2 to 3 days, if something happens and my buyer does not want to proceed, it just goes right back on. It really pretty much probably never came
so
off.
if you have an as is, you put the bid in as is and said we're doing an inspection for informational purposes only, then
And the right to terminate, so they can back out. Now that's a little
is that different than if it's not as is, you do an inspection and you find something wrong with the house?
No,
it's just
it's the
but you
same.
still have the right to back out.
You still have the right to back out if you choose that. Some people will do an inspection and they will not back out.
Well, yeah, the people won't, but the seller's looking at that contract. If it's informational purposes,
I'm
but
saying,
they still have a right to back out.
Okay, so I'm saying there are two areas for you to check.
Okay.
One is that you're going to get the inspection done, but the other one is with the right to terminate.
Gotcha.
And that's the one that I usually counsel my clients to choose.
Just go ahead and still do,
because
with the
it's
right
done
to
so
terminate.
quickly. Now, if we were holding it for 10 days, then I would not do that.
Then the seller has the right to go pick another contract.
That's right.
Okay.
So, so the as is, even though the home is listed as is and the contract is written as is, Barbara asked, what do I say to my clients? I believe that was your question. Well, I always say, get a home inspection. Now, there's something else that has come up that I saw a year ago, Barbara, about a year and a half ago. Didn't really know what was going on. This was in a market in Silver Spring, so it was more heated even than the market in Prince George's County, even at that time. And when I took a buyer to see a home, it was probably on the market for two days at the most. There were people walking through the home, and when we walked in, I didn't know that we weren't going to be the only people there. That's another thing that happens. When you schedule doing a seller's market, you may not be the only person going to see that home from 1 to 1:30.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And so when we got there, there were people outside the home. I mean, we had our little 1 o'clock appointment, and I'm thinking, what in the world is going on here? Why are these people? So I walked up there like I had some authority, because I knew this was my time. Hello. And then they told me, we have 1 o'clock, they have 1 o'clock, and this person has 1 o'clock.
Wow.
And I said, oh, okay, excuse me, I'm so sorry.
Wow.
So I kind of turned around and told my client what was going on, and so we walked on past them and went in. But then when I got in, Barbara, I got another surprise. There were 3 inspectors in that house.
Already.
I saw these 3, and they happen to all be men, not all inspectors are male, but I saw these 3 men, and I saw them moving around, and I saw them talking to, another person who I assumed was the client, but I didn't know immediately upon seeing them that they were inspectors. I couldn't figure out who they were. I literally thought that maybe they are contractors coming to do some work on the home. So as I listened, because I didn't want to ask a dumb question, so I listened and I said, these are inspectors. oh my gosh, what are they doing here? I'm talking to the client.
Right.
Because he had no idea either. You know, I didn't have any idea as a realtor. He definitely didn't have any idea. So as I got the ear of one of the buyers, she said to me, this is called a pre-offer inspection.
Yay.
And I said, oh, okay. So I go, you know, we leave there. And I go to my trusty home inspector and I said, what is this? What is a pre-offer inspection?
I don't know about.
That I don't know about.
I don't know about.
Do you do those? And of course he said, yes, I do. He said, you know, a year or so ago, he had done them rarely, but he has done them many, many more times since the market became a seller's market on steroids. And so fast forward, or I guess, fast forward a year later, which was probably in the month of March, I did a pre-offer inspection with that same buyer who had been looking about a year and a half before. And when I called him up and I said, I have a new strategy.
New strategy.
Except,
we're always learning.
That's right.
You're
You're
always learning.
And he appreciated it. But he did let me know that he would only use that strategy if it was a home that he
really,
absolutely
really
thought he wanted. Because basically what you're doing is if a home inspection might cost you, let's say, $550, $575, the at least for this one inspector, I don't know how everyone else prices it, but the pre-offer was actually $275. Okay, so you can imagine if you're doing pre-offers on every home, that's going to add up. That's going to add up. So he let me know that he did want to do a pre-offer on that particular home. Unfortunately, he did not get the contract. There were so many. I believe that one was the one where they got 75.
Wow.
Yeah. Offers.
The inspection must have been good.
Say it again.
The inspection must have been good.
The inspection must have been good. Actually, there were issues.
Oh
yeah. There was an issue that that it's a personal issue with me.
Okay.
That I would not have been able to take.
Okay.
But
to each his own.
To each his own. There were things running around in there.
Oh.
And so lots of them.
But make you run out.
And bigger things.
Yeah.
Not the
I'm with
teeny,
you on that one.
Yeah, not the little teeny things you can hit with your shoe.
Oh my goodness.
Bigger things.
Wow.
Anyway.
Okay. That means there's infiltration all around the house. I used to do weatherization. I know that. That's how those bigger things get in. But go ahead, Jackie.
And so anyway, my client was not fazed by that. Not at all. Not fazed at all. And neither were all those 75 people, I guess, who put that offer in.
Would have been fazed.
So anyway, we ended up getting the pre-offer and definitely was not going to ask for anything, okay, to be repaired by the seller. And this particular one had a rent back, and the person wanted the seller wanted 60 days to rent back, and wanted to have 60 days for free to rent back. My client gave that. My client gave all of the contingencies, except he did not do the appraisal. No appraisal contingency. He did not do that. He did not pull that. And I believe that's probably what actually got that buyer to get the contract.
Okay.
They had that because they pulled away all of the contingencies.
Wow.
The agent actually called me to tell me that.
Wow.
So anyway, when we initially submitted our offer on that particular home, we were number 2 in place. And then we went down to number 9 in place because of all the other offers that popped up. You said something earlier about calling to say whether or not you're going to submit an offer. That hadn't been done. People just popped in offers. Just shot them in.
Throwing in the offers.
Yeah, at the last minute deadline.
Wow.
So other things that happen are days on the market are shorter. If a home is on the market for 4 or 5 days, that's not unusual. And then it has a contract versus 30, 60, maybe even 90 days.
Yeah, because homes are going,
market.
they're like going off the market.
They go very quickly.
Yeah, they're going quickly.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, today we're going to probably have to revisit this again for the next show because there's a lot more that we didn't get to, right? That we probably still need to discuss.
I agree.
And I mean, today has been a wealth of, I learned some new things, even though I know you tell me everything. I learned some new things. right? So we're going to need to just discuss this. So today we've been talking about a buyer's and a seller's market. I think we're going to continue with this next week
love
because
that.
there's some other things that we still want to share with you out there, and how to get the contract and some tidbits I know that Jackie does and that I really love when we're going after particular contracts, right? So next week we're going to continue with some of that, and we're just happy that everybody stay tuned with us. I hope you wrote some notes. You can always send us questions at homebuyingquestions@gmail.com, or if you want to be in the audience, homebuyingaudience@gmail.com.
That's right.
Any last
that's
words,
right.
Jackie?
Well,
What's our famous last words?
I was about to say, if it's time for our famous last
It's
words.
time for our famous last words.
We just want you to know that we enjoy doing this so much. And the reason is because we want you to, to have all your ducks in a row and be ready for whatever market it is, whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. We want you to be ready for that. And we are here to basically help you to understand your power to purchase.
Your
so
power to
that
purchase.
you can be, what is the last tagline, Barbara?
I don't know.
Home buyer ready.
We'll
So
see
you
you
can be home buyer ready.
in 2.
That's right.